The first question. I grew up Catholic in the Philippines, where belief was not a choice, it was a rule. Everyone was Catholic by default. You were born into it, baptized into it, and expected to stay. My mother was devoted, and my father was all about science. He didn't really believe it, but he went along to make everyone happy. The mix of devotion and doubt in my home planted confusion in me early on. Things never quite made sense. The stories, the rituals, the rules. I remember sitting in church thinking to myself that this cannot be all there is. They told us to memorize prayers, repeat them like a song, but no one explained their meaning. Then came the time for confirmation, the ceremony that was supposed to seal my faith. I remember thinking, you want to lock me into a religion I don't even believe in? You force me to go every Sunday to listen to stories that don't add up, and you just want me to call that truth. Every year during Holy Week, dressed up like saints and parade us through the streets. I remember the heat, the fabric sticking to my skin, the people watching. It was embarrassing. That performance of holiness only confirmed what I already felt. I did not want to be Catholic. I was grateful that even at a young age, I could question what did not feel right. I kept asking myself, what is the lesson here? The story that haunted me the most was Adam and Eve. I could not understand why everyone around me believed it without question. Two people in a perfect garden told what not to do and punished when they did. It seemed like a trap. No pain, no death, no consequence, but also no awareness. Adam and Eve lived in a paradise that required no discernment. There was no right or wrong, no joy or sorrow, no curiosity, no desire. They simply obeyed, and they were safe, but not truly alive. Then came the serpent, the symbol of contrast. It was not evil, it was awakening. It brought the invitation to think, to question, to feel. When Eve reached for the apple, she was not defying, she was choosing. She wanted to know, to experience, to awaken, and that choice brought consequence, but it also brought awareness. The first death in Eden was not physical. It was the death of innocence, the death of blind obedience, and the death gave birth to everything meaningful. When I was young, the church said Eve was the reason we suffer, but I saw her differently. She was not punished, she was initiated. Without her, humanity would still be asleep in a perfect cage. Eve birthed awareness. She brought choice, consequence, and consciousness into being. That story made me question everything I was taught about sin. To me, sin was never evil. It was lack of awareness and absence of discernment. Acting without consciousness. Desire itself was not the problem, it was the compass. The danger came when desire moved without thought. I used to wonder if God created everything, including desire. Why would he punish Eve for using it? Wasn't that the very thing that made her divine? To want, to choose, to taste, to grow. Eventually, I understood that the story of Adam and Eve was not about disobedience. It was about awakening. Without contrast, there is no awareness. Without death, there is no appreciation for life. Without free will, there is no real love. That realization was my first glimpse of sovereignty. I began to see that the feminine was never the problem, it was the catalyst. Eve's desire cracked open the stillness of perfection and brought consciousness into form. Her longing was not a flaw, it was a spark of evolution. And yet the world learned to suppress that spark, to shame women for wanting, to call curiosity dangerous. The very impulse that gave birth to awareness became the one thing forbidden to express. What if the story was never about falling from grace, but returning to it consciously? What if the curse was simply the pain of awakening? When I look back to myself as a child sitting in those pews, watching my parents pretend being told to perform holiness, I see now that I was living in a small version of Eden, a world that valued appearance over awareness. I was not trying to rebel, I was trying to be real. And then life handed me the apple. The middle way of the feminine. Across my Catholic school on top of the hill was a Buddhist monastery. During lunch breaks, I would wander there with my best friend, drawn by the sight of the monks in bright orange robes. They moved slowly, intentionally, like time did not own them. I was curious, and their world felt different, peaceful and coherent. They never tried to convert me or explain anything. They simply existed quietly and fully. I would sit in the temple courtyard and watch the koi gliding through still water, light bending on their backs. The air felt alive but calm, and for the first time I could feel truth, not as a belief but as presence. When I joined them for meals, their food was plain, rice, beans, and vegetables, yet each bite tasted sacred. There was no performance of holiness, only quiet intention. The simplicity of it all felt pure, alive, and complete. The monks were my apple of enlightenment. They showed me a form of devotion that did not require fear or obedience. Their silence was more instructive than any sermon. Their peace was the contrast that made my confusion visible. Through them, I understood that holiness is not something performed, it is something lived. Around that time, our school held a play about Siddhartha. I remember watching the story of the Buddha unfold with wide eyes open. It felt like something in my soul recognized itself. Here was a prince who had everything: wealth, comfort, beauty, but he left it all in search of truth. He looked at the walls of his palace and saw them for what they were, an illusion of safety built around a sleeping heart. That story pierced me. I too had grown up surrounded by abundance. We had nannies, drivers, endless food, our life looked perfect. But inside it felt hollow. It was like living in Eden again, beautiful and sterile. Everything was taken care of, and yet something vital was missing. Even as a child, I felt the dissonance, the chaos, the pretending. Everyone chasing something, moving without meaning. I used to climb trees just to be still, to feel the quiet of the wind. Watching the story of the Buddha, I remember thinking, he left because he wanted to be real. He left because perfection was not peace. That was my first awakening. The Buddha's story showed me that leaving comfort is not loss, it is liberation, that you can walk away from abundance and find something richer inside your own stillness. It made sense in a way religion never did. It gave shape to what I had been feeling all along. Looking back now, I see that the monks were never meant to give me answers. They were there to teach me how to live inside the question. Their silence revealed that no sermon could. That peace is not the absence of wanting, it is the awareness that holds the wanting. They embody the middle point between two extremes. My Catholic world has taught me to obey, to suppress, to earn love through purity. The modern world would later teach me to chase, to achieve, to prove my worth through desire. But in the monastery, I saw something else: stillness that breathed, simplicity that was not hollow, devotion that was not afraid of life. That was when I began to understand what I now call the middle way of the feminine. It is the path between repression and indulgence, between silence and expression, between the sacred and the sensual. The monks taught me that presence can coexist with desire. Wanting something deeply and not being attached to its outcome are not contradictions. They are different expressions of the same awareness. The feminine path is not about transcending hunger, it is about transforming it into something holy. The middle way is not neutrality, it is coherence. It is learning to hold both fire and stillness in one body. It is knowing that devotion can wear red lipstick and ambition can be devotional. It is not about escaping the human condition, but embodying it fully and gracefully. As I grew older, I began to see that every aspect of my life was an initiation into balance. The part of me that once wanted to rebel, I learned to listen. The part that feared surrender learned to trust. The part that longed for meaning learned that meaning is not something we find, but something we live into. The monks were the first mirrors of this truth, but life itself became the teacher. Each moment of desire was an opportunity to choose consciousness. Each act of resistance was an invitation to soften, and each fall was a return to deeper integrity. That is what the middle way asks of us. Not perfection, but presence. Not purity, but awareness. To live with both eyes open and open heart. To love without losing self. To rise without abandoning softness. When I think of Eve now, I see her walking the same path. She chose to taste, she chose to know, and she opened her eyes. She did not fall from grace, she fell into it. The middle way is the journey back to the state of embodied knowing, where desire and discernment no longer fight each other but move as one. This is the philosophy that shaped my life, the way of awakening without abandoning beauty, the art of holding power without losing tenderness. The middle way is not the absence of extremes, it is the sacred rhythm that makes them whole. And maybe that is the point of all of this. Eve's apple, monk's stillness, and the Buddha's departure. My own hunger to understand. They were never separate lessons. They were different languages teaching me the same thing, that the divine does not live at the edges. It lives in the center, in the breath between want and peace, in the silence that listens even while it longs, in the middle way of the feminine. The first fire, the golden apple. Now years later, my circle has come full. I understand what I could not name then. That true wealth was never the comfort of things. It was the coherence of spirit. It was never the ownership of matter but the mastery of meaning. This is where Visceros was born. Vis, power, eros, divine desire. Together they are the sacred force of creation, the merging of consciousness and longing, the architecture of wholeness itself. Growing up wealthy taught me that abundance without awareness is still poverty. The monks taught me that peace without passion is only stillness. Through the middle way of the feminine, I learned to fuse the two. Power that feels and feeling that creates. The golden apple, it is not just a symbol of knowledge. It is an alchemical fruit made of solar consciousness. To taste it is to ingest living light, to awaken the inner grail, the kundalini rising through the body, illuminating the intelligence hidden in the heart. It is the sacred spark of Gnosis, the direct knowing that cannot be taught, only embodied. This to me is the return of Eden, not as a paradise lost, but as a paradise reborn within. Heaven on earth through the awakened feminine. The new Genesis will not be written by the hands of men, but through the voice of creation herself. Eve was not the beginning of sin, she was the beginning of consciousness, and that to me is the most sacred act of all. Eve was right, and so am I, and I am here to write it. The Gnosis of the Golden Apple. To begin this path, I invite you to close your eyes, feel the light gathering behind them. There is a golden apple resting at the center of your chest. It has always been there, wanting for you to remember. This fruit is not forbidden. It is the memory of your own divinity. It is made of sunlight and silence, the same light that poured through Eve's hands, the same silence that lived in the monk's breath, the same still fire that called Siddhartha from his palace. Taste it. Taste it. Do not fear its sweetness. It will not cast you out of paradise. It will bring paradise home inside your body. The golden apple is the living light of Gnosis. It is the moment when knowing stops being theory and becomes embodiment. It is the sacred spark that says, I will no longer worship what I already am. It is the fire that awakens the serpent in the spine and the chalice in the heart. The breath that whispers, I am both the hunger and the grace that feeds it. To bite into this fruit is to return to the truth that all opposes are lovers. Power and tenderness, discipline and surrender, shadow and light, masculine and feminine. The apple is golden because it carries solar consciousness, the radiant intelligence of a being who knows she is made of both star and soil. To taste it is to remember how to burn gently, how to glow without consuming, how to live as a bridge between heaven and earth. This is the inheritance of the awakened feminine, not perfection, but coherence. The knowing that God is not something to ascend towards, but something to express through every breath. When you eat of this apple, you are not punished, you are initiated. You are saying yes to the totality of your own being. You are choosing to know rather than to perform. You are returning to your original wholeness, where divinity is not a crown above you, but a pulse within you. This is the golden apple. It is not a story of sin, but of synthesis, not a symbol of disobedience, but of divine remembrance. It is what happens when wisdom and desire meet and call it love. Take it gently into your hands. Feel its weight, its light, its warmth. You are holding the seed of the new world, and you are holding the beginning of your own Genesis. And when you are ready, taste it. Let the light enter you. Let the knowing rise. Let the paradise begin again, this time through you.